you all know, my name is Madison Tomblin. Welcome to my capstone. First, I just want to say thank you to everyone here today, but especially to my parents for always supporting me throughout my entire life. Sorry. But also through my 4 years here, through homesickness, and through all my basketball games and all of that. To my two sisters who couldn't be here today for being my best friends, and to my panel, of course, for taking time out of their day. For all my friends in the back, thank you. So I'll start by talking about who I am. I'm from LaPorte, Indiana, just about 45 minutes west of here. I'm a psychology major at Holy Cross, and I have 2 minors in gerontology and theology. For those of you who are wondering what gerontology is, I get that question a lot. It is the study of aging and geriatrics. So it's important to talk about who I am before I came to Holy Cross. I came from a very close-knit family where we were always encouraged to stay close to one another and support one another. My 2 sisters and I became best friends over the years. We were also very academically focused. My mom always instilled in me that your academics is something no one can ever take away from you. And so that's something I carried with me as a serious student throughout my entire life. I also was very involved in athletics, softball for about 12 years with my older sister. That's something we bonded over every summer. And then also basketball, which is something that became my passion as I got older, and actually something that brought me to Holy Cross. When it comes to my personality, I would say I'm more of an introvert. My friends know that I'm not the first to speak up, and I'm not considered outgoing. I'm more of a quiet mediator between my friend groups. I'm more of a peacekeeper. And that brings me to my small high school experience, which I feel is important to talk about because it is such a sharp contrast to my Holy Cross experience. This is a picture of my high school, an aerial view of South Central, which is surrounded by cornfields. This building is K through 12, so pretty small, isolated place. I like to joke about everyone's favorite day of the year was bring your tractor to school day. And so I actually didn't participate in this. I lived too far on the edge of town, but that kind of gives you an illustration, as well as donkey basketball, which that's me with a donkey on the basketball court. So that was just another small town, small school event that we did. I will say that after everything that my high school did provide me and all the academic success I had there was a lack of diversity. That's both ethnically and a lack of diversity when it came to opportunities to come out of your comfort zone. There wasn't too many at South Central. You were either an athlete or you were in the band. Everyone kind of stayed in their own lane. So that is a challenge that I did have in high school. So when we come up with our capstone, we do need to come up with a theme. I kind of struggled with mine. I talked to Adam a bunch about it. So I kind of worked backwards, and I thought of all the stories that I wanted to include. And I did come across this quote that seemed to run through all of my stories. And the quote is, "I have realized it is during the times I am far outside my element that I experience myself the most." So in other words, it was the times at Holy Cross that I met new people, that I wasn't afraid to do new activities, try new things, that I grew the most. So why did I choose Holy Cross? It started really when I told my parents my senior year of high school that I really would like to play basketball in college. So what that meant was for me talking to college coaches and try to get recruited. So I actually did have 3 college offers. Out of the 3 offers, Holy Cross was the closest to home, which was really important to me, being so close to my family, and also just wanting my family to be able to make it to my games. And so that played a huge role. And then also, when I came on a campus visit, Holy Cross was immediately something that was very familiar to me. Standing on the quad, which was at the time a parking lot, I was able to basically see all of campus from one point. And that was very, just nice for me. It reminded me of my high school experience. It was just not overwhelming like I was expecting college to be. It's kind of ironic because my choice to come to Holy Cross was actually very much in my comfort zone. Little did I know that Holy Cross would soon bring me out of that comfort zone. So I'll now talk about my academic experience. Of course, the most important reason that we all come to Holy Cross is for our academics, and I took my academic experience very seriously. I'll start by talking about some classes I really enjoyed, my service learning, and my internship experience, and then also all the research I've done while I was here. The first class that I really enjoyed was my clinical psychology class, taught by Dr. Hugh Van Auken. For those of you who don't know Hugh, he's a clinical psychologist by day, and he teaches classes at night, so it was really cool to see his expertise brought to the classroom. So we learned to diagnose and treat psychological disorders, whether it's ADHD, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. We had a lot of lectures and note-taking, but the biggest thing that drove me to really fall in love with the class was the clinical scenarios that Dr. Hugh put us in. And so he assigned us each a character, either from a famous book or a famous movie, and he told us to portray that character throughout the semester. I got to be Marcus Brody, a man from the Indiana Jones series, and he had extreme case of ADHD, and so I was to portray him throughout the semester. And my classmates took turns diagnosing me and treating me, and I got to do the same for someone else in my classroom. So what did I gain? The reason I'm choosing to talk about it today is because the main thing I gained from this class was a sense of clarity. When you become a psychology major, they tell you that you can either go into research or you can go into clinical psychology. Before this experience, I had always thought, I think I might like clinical, but I really didn't know why, and I didn't have the words to explain why I might like clinical. So this class really gave me the knowledge as to why I might like this. So theology was also very important to me while I was here. My favorite class was Theo 101 with Dr. Albron. I came in as a freshman. It was one of my first classes, and I was very timid. As I said, not eager to speak up. And, you know, I didn't want to participate. I never openly talked about my faith before, besides in the church or at the home. So this was my first experience talking about my faith with my peers. And so what I liked about the class was that Dr. Albron encouraged us all to speak up, not just, you know, those who shared views with him, but he encouraged everyone. So he made me feel welcome instantly as a freshman. So what did I gain? The reason I'm talking about this class is because Dr. Albron really gave me a confidence to talk about my faith, which is really important in going forward with that all I'm going to do as I go on. One of the first papers I wrote, I titled Finding Darwin's God, and this is my thesis from the paper, and it says, but is it possible to be both a believer of God and a supporter of Darwin's evolution? To believe that humans were made by God in his image and that humans were evolved from other species. So this was my thesis. I remember working on it till maybe 3 a.m., turning it in and being nervous about what I would receive on the paper. I remember the day I got my paper back, Dr. Albron had written a couple paragraphs on the back with feedback, and at the very end he said, you know, I loved your insights, I love your unique perspective, you should really consider becoming a theology major or minor. And that was the first time anyone had really recognized my ability to talk about my faith, and so it wasn't long after this class that I actually did become a theology minor, and this was just the start of my theology journey. So at Holy Cross, we're asked to do a couple experiential classes. My experience was at Holy Cross Village. That was my placement, and I was to visit every week for a whole semester. I was pretty hesitant coming in. I had never worked with older people before. It's not like talking to your peers. It's, you know, there's a generational gap. There's some stereotypes that you have to overcome. And so I was pretty nervous as someone who was more introverted. So my job there was really just to serve as a companion to people who maybe didn't have visitors during the day. I would play bingo, I would take them on walks, I would just simply talk to them. And I soon realized that for most of them who didn't have a lot of family, or maybe whose family couldn't visit them all the time, that being with me and talking to me was probably the best part of their day. And so that was just the most rewarding experience. The main thing I gained, I would say, is just skills to be able to work with elderly people. For those who have done it before, you know how challenging it might be to overcome some of the things I talked about, the stereotypes. And so I really learned the skills in order to communicate. My professional internship experience was very similar to my service learning experience. I talked to Angela Fitzpatrick and Catherine Cressy about where I possibly could do my internship. And you know, they said, you really liked your service learning experience, why don't you try going back to the village? And so I called my boss, Jody Meyer, and Kelly Oldfield, and they asked me to head a program known as Music in Memory, which is a non-for-profit program which brings music to nursing homes and helps dementia patients connect with their past and bring back old memories and just to serve as a companion to them. So I really enjoyed heading the program. I also did events while I was there. Any type of event that was going on, I would jump in and help out with. The main thing that I gained from this experience was, a sense of clarity about my path for my future. I remember after one event, we had an ice cream social. I was in charge of helping a man and sitting with a man who was non-communicative, so he was more difficult for some people, and some people would shy away from helping him just because he wasn't able to communicate with me. And so I remember sitting with him for that day, helping him eat ice cream, just talking to him. It was a very nice day out. And I remember receiving an email from Kelly Oldfield after that experience was over, and she had said, how thrilled she was that I was there and how much passion that she felt I brought, and how passionate I was to the man who most people shied away from. And she told me that I should really consider getting into geriatrics and considering a field, for my career in geriatrics. And so that was the first time I had heard that, and the first time I had been praised for my work with the elderly, and it really solidified for me that that was, a possible career path that I would follow. So I also did a lot of research while I was here, mostly under Dr. Cosette Fox. The first experience I had was with research methods, and that's a class that all psychology majors have to take. Dr. Fox asked me if my research partner, Mark, and I would like to help her with a project known as Glucose in Memory. And we did this project for about 1.5 years under the guidance of both Dr. Fox and a professor at Notre Dame. And we actually were really happy to get accepted to present at the Society for Neuroscience Conference. So we did get to travel to DC. This was us presenting our poster in DC. And that was a cool experience in and of itself, just being able to travel for the first time really without my family. And being amongst thousands of researchers, some of them famous researchers, some of them just graduate school researchers, and it just felt very cool to be immersed in that for the first time. I also did some research in my social psych class. This was more of a questionnaire type research where we studied parenting styles and how that correlates with leadership skills in children. And I also participated in a cortisol and mindset study, which is still going on right now. I served a little bit of a lesser role in that study, but we are presenting it actually later this week at the conference in Chicago. So we're really excited for that. I will say that the main reason I'm talking about my research, although I really valued my experiences and I know that it's helped me get into grad school, the main reason I'm talking about my research today is to show that it's not only the experiences that help us discern what we want to do, but also the ones that help us to rule out certain things that are really important. After doing research and after working on the clinical side of things, I did decide that clinical was the route I wanted to go, but I do value all my research experiences. So besides academics, I was very involved here on campus. Of course, I played basketball, which was by far my biggest commitment. When they say it's a job, it really is. 12 months out of the year, either training for season or being in season or training after season, a full-time job. I could talk about the leadership skills that it helped me to gain and the teamwork skills I gained, but the biggest thing that basketball did for me while I was here was it served as an outlet. As a serious student, that was something I really needed. I needed the balance in my life, and basketball really did provide that for me. I was amongst people that were going through the exact same things I was, my teammates, my coaches, and I just love my basketball experience for that. I was also president of Psych Club, which was an academic club here on campus. When I first came in, it was pretty small. It wasn't very popular. A lot of kids don't want to join Psych Club because they say, why would I want to be in an academic club in my free time? But I will say that I think we did organize a lot of events that ended up being really popular on campus, something that students began to look forward to. And so I watched that grow as I progressed with that. And I was also president of Psych High, which was a new society, International Honor Society for psych majors or minors. And that was cool to be a part of something brand new. That was its first year, just this year. I will say that before being president of these two clubs, I had never been president of anything. Besides being a leader on my basketball team in high school, I had never, led a group of people. I had never delegated tasks. So it was a brand new, experience for me. It was a definite learning curve. I also went on a few trips, one with my geology class across the American Southwest. We traveled to all the national parks. We studied the geology of those parks. It was a 10-day trip, which coming in as a freshman, I was actually pretty nervous coming into the trip. I thought, I don't know any of these people. How am I gonna be in close quarters with people I don't know for 10 days? I didn't have any friends in the class. But I kind of dove right in and took the class, and it was actually the best trip I've ever been on. And it was also the first time I was away from home without my family. So that was a cool experience for me, and I'm really glad I did that. And I also traveled to Vienna, Austria, my sophomore year with a psychology group, and we traveled to a psychology conference there where we got to see a lot of different international researchers come together for this conference. This was my first time out of the country, something that was pretty scary for me as well as for my mom. She was nervous about me leaving, but it was just a great experience, especially coming from such a small high school. I wasn't really diverse, culturally introduced to different diversity, so I really was glad to have this experience to kind of open my eyes. It was a bit of a culture shock, but it served its purpose. So I included this page just to kind of show everything I've been involved in while I was here, and I included this legend. I like color coding, but I just wanted to show, like the wide range of things. So I actually did do Holy Cross Phone-a-thon, which is essentially talking to people on the phone and begging them for money. So that was not something I was comfortable with, but it definitely strengthened my marketing skills, and it did make me more comfortable talking to people. I worked at the Writing Center. I was a private tutor, so those really gained my mentorship skills. I did a lot of volunteering, St. Vincent de Paul, Habitat for Humanity, things like that, that really brought me in community with South Bend. I played intramural football, which is interesting because I never played football really in my life. And so I kind of just jumped into that, something that normally wouldn't have been comfortable with, but I found myself wanting to do these things while I was here. A couple philosophy statements have emerged from all my experiences and all my stories. The first one being that I've learned the value of positive mental health in every person's life. This is, of course, something I've learned through my psychology background. And then I've also discovered my passion to work with the elderly and value their unique role in our society. Of course, this is something I learned through my gerontology background as well as through my work at Holy Cross Village. And these are things that Holy Cross has helped me to grow in, and something I look forward to bringing with me wherever my career takes me. So the biggest looming question probably is what's next for me? After a really extensive grad school search, I applied to about 12 different grad schools, both PhD and master's programs in psychology. I accepted an offer at Valparaiso University for their clinical mental health counseling program, which is a 2-year graduate program. It's very competitive, and it's 60 credits, and when I'm done at the end, I'll be licensed, so that's always a plus. Whether I'll go in for my PhD is kind of still undetermined, but that is a goal of mine. What will I contribute? This was actually the first question they asked me on interview day. They said, every student that's invited to this day is very smart, is top of their class, is active on their campuses. What makes you different, and what will you contribute that someone else won't contribute? And so I kind of reflected on my Capstone experience, and I said to the professor asking me, I said, I think I'm a complete picture. So what do I mean by complete picture? I wrote down, you see 3 different things that I talked about here today. My psychology background, which I consider to be my knowledge. So everything I've learned in the classroom is my knowledge, and that's something I'm really grateful for, as well as my passion, which I found my passion to be working with older people. And so, of course, my gerontology background has helped me to complete my picture even more. And then my theology background, which, talking about my faith, bringing that faith to the village when I'm working with people, growing in my faith has made me made me even more complete. And so I told the man, I am a complete picture. Why, you want a counselor that's not only knowledgeable, but someone that's going to be, personable and is going to be able to care for the whole person and not just their mind, but also their body and their well-being, as well as have a passion to work with them. People know when you don't want to be there, and I do bring a passion. And so I think of these things as pieces to a puzzle, one being incomplete without the other. I really have Holy Cross to thank for that, for not only developing my skills, but bringing them all together and showing me how they can fit together. Thank you for being so attentive. I hope you've enjoyed my capstone.
Good.